Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Albuquerque Aliens Draft Glory franchise mode here in NHL 25. So in last episode, if you did not catch it, we had the season simulation, and it was kind of an interesting season for us. We had some really good stretches of hockey, but we also had some pretty bad stretches of hockey, so our record finished the season with a record of 46, 31, and 5. So it wasn't necessarily the most insane season in the world. We were also 3-7 going into the playoffs. So we kind of just barely scraped our way in. But now that we're in, at least maybe we have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. Obviously, it's going to be tough because we're one of these teams that aren't going to have home ice advantage a lot. But I think obviously, though, we do still have some players that are on our roster that could make us a little bit of an underdog in a sense. We are also a very good defensive team, as you can see, like a comparison to us in San Jose, who we're going to be taking on in the first round. We were actually a very solid defensive team, but that's pretty much it. Like, our goals for per game was pretty bad. Our power play percentage was really one of the worst in the league, which is not a good thing to see as well. So hopefully our power play picks up a little bit, so that way our offensive numbers could get better. And then also our penalty kill was 22nd in the league. So the only thing we were really good at was goals against. And the main reason why I'd say on that is probably because we have a solid defensive core, and also our goaltending obviously is pretty damn good too. So we didn't really score a lot of goals. We only had one player over point per game, that being Dunham. We did also have a lot of injuries throughout the season, so maybe that played a little bit of a factor. As you can see, Reefers missed some games. You have a bunch of guys also on only 80 games played. Petterman missed 16 games, so there's a lot of injuries on the team, and that could have played a little bit of a factor in terms of how we simulated. But for the most part, the goaltending was fantastic in the regular season, and hopefully it continues like that into the postseason as well, because obviously there's a chance this year, if Giunta obviously doesn't play good in the playoffs, we might honestly give Bachman an opportunity to play at least a game, just because he hasn't started a playoff game before in his career. And this year he was a lot better than he was last year, so maybe this is a coming out partying forward guy. So very excited to see what he could do if he does get a playoff game in. We obviously will start with Giunta, but if Giunta plays 2 bad games in a row, we'll go to Bachman. If Bachman's playing bad, maybe we'll have a chance to call up Andronov from the AHL, who is also an 84. Like, there's a lot of good goaltenders that we could go through in this playoff, so at least we have a little bit of depth to our lineup in that sense. So excited to see what this team could do this postseason, but like I said, we are going to be taking on a tough San Jose Sharks team who had over 50 wins this season. Surprisingly, they didn't make the playoffs last year, but the year before that, they were really, really good. I will show you guys their roster again, just in case you forgot. But a lot of the guys are similar to when we played them a few years ago, because we did play them a few years ago in the playoffs. And yeah, they have a lot of superstar players. I'm kind of surprised that they haven't won. I heard, did they win a Stanley Cup? I don't think so, right? No, they haven't won a Stanley Cup yet with this roster. So that kind of scares me a little bit. Also, the fact that they missed the playoffs kind of surprises me, but you can see like Bochenski's 96 overall, Rodin's an 87, Keeler's a 92, Morrison's a 91. So they're pretty top 6 heavy in terms of their offensive core, but they do have some good pieces in that bottom 6 too, like Neil McNeil, former LA Kings. So got to watch out for that. From a defensive standpoint, their defensive core is not the strongest defensive core, but it is still not a bad one. I'd say it's stronger on the left-hand side for sure over that right-hand side. And then from a goaltending perspective, obviously Dorian Sawchuk, we saw what he did a few years ago in the playoffs. He hasn't been as good since, but I do think this guy is still one of the best goaltenders in the NHL at this point. Because you can see a few years ago, he had his rookie season, and he had a .923 save percentage in 68 games. Ended up winning the Calder and the Vezina in the same season. And then in the playoffs, though, so far, he obviously, like I said, he made one 2 years in a row in the playoffs, and then he missed last year, which was kind of surprising. Obviously, the year that he played us in the Stanley Cup playoffs, he had a .939 save percentage, so he was really, really good. But the year after that, he was pretty damn bad. So not sure what to expect from him against us in this playoff matchup, but yeah, here you can see he's one of the only goalies I've seen in this entire franchise mode, or most franchise modes I've had, that's won a Calder as well. So shout out to Sawchuk, but we are definitely going to have to try and find ways to score some goals on him, which hopefully we could do, because I know we've done it before, but obviously that San Jose Sharks team is probably primed to win a Stanley Cup at some point in time. But anyways, with that said, let's get in your guys' comments, see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we will make sure our lines are ready to go for game number 1 and get into game 1 as well. So the first comment is from Garage TV, who says, team looks a lot weaker. My prediction for the season before I watch is 40, 30, and 12. So he kind of undersold us a little bit, but not by much. I mean, 46 wins isn't really that much more than 40. But it was, like I said, a little bit of an inconsistent season that we had, because there was some really, really good stretches early in the year. But one month in particular was really bad for us, and that was January. January, we lost most games that month. We had a shootout win here over Vegas, and then we had a win in regulation over the LA Kings here, and we had a shutout win there over Nashville. But every other game was a loss, which is unfortunate. One of them was a shootout loss. Every other one was regulation. So, yeah, it was a very tough month for our team, but at least we were able to kind of bounce back a little bit. We had a pretty decent month of February, and then I think March was kind of a little bit inconsistent, especially near the end of it. Looks like the first little bit was okay, but then you could see all these losses piling up. So we kind of got lucky that we still made it into the playoffs, but hopefully we don't keep on falling apart. Hopefully this team all of a sudden just flips a switch and wins a lot more games in the postseason. And the last two and final comments are from Michael Dose. The first one says, I'll take Dunham to lead the team in points. So he predicted at the start of the season that Dunham would lead the team in points, and that was always a safe bet, and he was correct on that. Like I said, he was the only over point per game player on this team, which makes a lot of sense because if we look at our forward group in our offensive team, it's not very strong offensively anymore. We don't really have anybody above an 85 other than Dunham, so it makes sense that he'd be the one that would score a lot for our team. And then from a defensive standpoint, these guys do pick up offense in a little bit, but they aren't going to be picking up a 80-point season, most of these kind of guys, because they're not offensive defensemen. So makes a lot of sense that Dunham would always lead the team in points. Hopefully he continues to have a good playoffs ahead of him as well. What did he do for us last year in the playoffs again? I can't remember, because I think he was good, right? Oh, yeah, 8 points in 7 games. So, yeah, he did good enough for us last year. So, hopefully he can continue to build on that because he's been one of the better players for us in the last few years in the postseason. And lastly, Michael says, do you keep rosters and data of all your RTS teams? I know you build NHL teams of the past, but it would be cool if you had all your RTS teams compete against one another to see which is the best franchise ever. My bet is Anchorage. So, he's talking about if I put basically all my Draft Glory team rosters into a franchise mode, or not maybe necessarily franchise mode, maybe a playoff scenario, and seeing who was the best, you'd think Anchorage would be the best, which is interesting. Now, I don't keep all the rosters and stats and stuff like that from every single one of my Draft Glories. One of my friends was actually keeping track of every single franchise mode I did at one point, but he's a few years behind, I think, at this point now. But I could probably go through some old videos and stuff like that and try and recreate teams if I wanted to, but I don't know if I would be able to, because I don't know if I'd be able to get the attribute spread down, because I don't think I have screenshots of every player's individual attributes. If I did in the last season, that'd be kind of interesting, or when we actually had the team win a Stanley Cup, maybe I should have went through this part of the screen so that way we could see all these guys' attributes, and then maybe I make a Stanley Cup team at some point, but I didn't end up doing that, so I don't think there's any way I could actually do that, but at some point maybe we get back into doing something like that. Really depends if I could find a way to get basically what the attribute spread is for all these players, because I can't really just tell based on their overall how good of a player they are, what type of player they are. So it would be nice if at some point, when I do a Draft Glory next year, whenever I win a Stanley Cup, maybe I should just look through all the attributes of every single player, so that way maybe I could start keeping track of stuff like that, and then maybe eventually in I don't know how many years, we could do eventually a playoff scenario with a lot of Draft Glory teams. If I would have done that back in NHL 22 or whatever it was in 21 and stuff, it would have been interesting, because then we could have had Houston, we could have had Anchorage, we could have had Albuquerque, we could have had Halifax, all just battling it out to see who was the best, which would have been pretty fun. So anyways, those were the comments we got in last episode. So do we need to make any adjustments to our lines before we start off this matchup? I don't feel like we do, at least not yet, because I honestly don't know what to expect from this team. So I think we'll probably keep it like this to start off. And from a defensive standpoint, I think these pairings are solid enough as well. Obviously, like I said, we were a really good defensive team during the season, so probably keeping that the same is a good idea. And for now, we'll probably start Giunta, who's now 35 years old, so he might end up retiring potentially this offseason or next. But obviously, next offseason is the last offseason anyways. Or next offseason is technically, not necessarily. Yeah, it might be the last year. I don't even really know. But, yeah, he's getting pretty old. So we'll start Giunta, obviously, for now. But Bachman might have an opportunity. Like I said, if Bachman and such plays bad, we do have guys we could call up potentially as playoff run, like Vasilyev, Hansen. There's definitely a lot of dudes that could come up to the NHL and maybe give us a bit better of a chance to win games. But I don't know who I would send down and all that stuff. But might have to happen. Alright, so with that said, I think we're ready to get into this matchup and see what ends up happening. Like I said, if we get in any troubles, maybe we'll call up some people from the AHL. But for right now, we want to keep with the actual roster. Let's see if this team can put the last half of the season or last few months of the season behind itself, especially these recent losses. Hopefully, we don't continue to lose a bunch of games and don't get swept first round. Because I know our team isn't strong enough, I don't think, to win a Stanley Cup maybe at this point. But maybe the game still thinks we have it in us. But if we beat somebody like San Jose, we could probably beat almost any team. So let's see what ends up happening. See if we can play to our strength, which is our defensive play. And then also see if we could find a way to start scoring some goals. So let's get to game number 1 in San Jose. See what we could do here. Come on, boys. You got this. First period, game number 1. 1-1, I'll take it. It's better than being down by a goal. We do score first. It's Dunham, of course, on the power play. So good to see our power play click here early on, considering it wasn't great during the season. Keeler then scores for them, so that's one of their top line guys as well. Shots are even, goals are even after 1. Can we find a way to get that lead back in the second period? 2-1 Sharks, not ideal. I mean, we are still only down by a goal, so at least that's okay. They are out shooting us 29-19, so we need to be careful here that we don't get stuck into these games where we're not scoring a lot of goals. Like I said, during the regular season, we weren't good offensively, so we almost can't allow more than 1 goal against or 2 goals against, or else we start having a little bit of a tougher time because we don't have the goal scoring support, right? Shots are 29-19 in favor of them, so Gianta's been really good for us so far. Hopefully he keeps us in it in the third period and we can find a way to tie this one up, but let's see what happens. Third period underway. Come on, guys. Hey, Dingle scores his first career playoff goal immediately to start the third, so that's a big goal from Dingle. He had a pretty solid rookie season. But Keeler gives the Sharks back the lead as their top line has been doing a little bit of work against us so far in this game. But Cashman answers back. Despite him dropping off a bit, he could retire the season, which is kind of crazy. It's a 3-3 game here in the third, final few minutes. And we are going to be going to overtime in game 1. Interesting, okay. Wasn't expecting that. Shots are 36-33 in favor of us, so we outshot them badly in that third period, which is good to see. And it's a 3-3 game after 3. Who wants to be the one to score the overtime winner? We got a goal from Cashman, we got a goal from Dingle, and we got a goal from our boy in Dunham. So that's first line, second line, I think, and first line again. Which person do I want to shout out to score a goal? I'm feeling it's like a defenseman again. It always seems to be like Hunwick or Hutton or somebody like that. So let's go with like Drew Bell again or something like that and see if we can find a way to win here. So here we go. Overtime, game number 1. Can we find a way to get that winner? And no, we cannot. Unfortunately, the back and forth battle continued, and Rodin scores the game-winning goal for the Sharks as we fall in game 1 in a already close game. So we could have probably won that game, but unfortunately, it was just not enough. So the shots were dead even at the end of the game. We only lose by a goal. I don't think that's a terrible first game to have, obviously, but it would have been nice if we would have stole a game in San Jose to start off this round. But Dunham from Robertson and McLeod. Then we had Dingle from Nold and Tulipov. Cashman from Reefers and McLeod. But unfortunately, Rodin ends up winning the game for them. So yeah, that top line did a lot of work for the Sharks in that one. And that's pretty much why we lost that game. Because look at this. Keeler 3 points. Rodin 3 points. Bochinski 2 points. So that's one thing that we got to find a way to somehow contain is that top line. If we don't contain that top line, we are definitely going to be in for a tough time. That top line got a ton of ice time too. Every single one of those players got 27 plus minutes. Like they got more ice time than a defenseman, which is interesting. So definitely got to be careful against that top line. And then Sawchuk was really good against us, as he typically is. McLeod picked up 2 assists, which is nice, and a bunch of people on 1 point. Any badly minus people? Petterman and Hunwick weren't very good. Hutton wasn't very good. It's kind of just a mixed bag on who was bad in that game. It's all right. And then goaltending-wise, Gianta added 895, but I don't think Gianta was really that bad in that game. He gave us a chance, especially in that second period, so definitely not going to put that on him. Keeler gets first star, Rodin second star, Bochinski third star. Not a surprise. Yeah, we got to definitely find a way to shut down that top line, because that top line is probably one of the best top lines in the NHL. So if we could shut it down, we definitely have a higher chance to win games. If we could get our offense going, obviously we could maybe have a chance to win some games too. But we're going to keep John net for this game. But if we lose another game, I think we might give a chance to one of the young goaltenders like Bachman. And if Bachman doesn't play good, like I said, I might call up Antronov, not too sure. But right now, I just want to find a goaltender that can win us games, basically. And it's nothing against Giunta at this stage. Like I said, Giunta had a pretty solid first game, I think. He did well for the most part. Like, he kept us in it in that second period. So maybe he could have a nice little bounce back game, even though his save percentage was pretty bad the last game in that sense. But let's see if we could at least get one win on the road in San Jose. Because if we could win one game in San Jose, then we could maybe shift to home ice and win some games there too. So let's keep the team the same for now. But we might have to make some adjustments after this game. So, game number 2 in San Jose. Can we find a way to tie the series up? First period. Ooh, that is not ideal. Well, Giunta, you're not going to be in next game. I can already tell you that. It's not. The first game was not on you, in my opinion. This game so far definitely is. Could be on the defensive coverage too, though. But Marr opens the scoring for them. Backman makes it 2-0. McLeod made it 2-1. So at that point, we're still in it. But then they get 2 goals 29 seconds apart. Bochinski and Wang. And that's a very dreadful first period. Now, we are out shooting them, which is kind of surprising, 14-11. So if we could get 1 or 2 goals back in the next period and don't give up anything, we could still definitely come back from this deficit. But that's a very tough first period, especially after last game. We only lost in overtime. So can we have a good second period here and maybe regain our defensive identity? Because that's definitely uncharacteristic of this team. Second period. 6-1 Sharks. Well, this game's definitely over at this point. Giunta's apparently still in net, which I'm kind of surprised on. But, yeah, definitely our defensive play went down the tubes in this game. Reefers makes it a 6-2 game, so at least we get another goal back. But, yeah, if our defensive identity from the regular season was there in this game, we would have had a better chance. But our defensive identity has gone from being there all season long, pretty much, to not there whatsoever to start off the series. Now, we could still win both of our home games, so we aren't out of the series yet, but that's definitely a tough game, especially when we outshot them 42-35, but we lost 6-2, so definitely got to find a way to score more goals and also be better defensively. So, our only goals are McLeod from Nold and Cogliano, and then Reefers from Cashman and Kohlers. The sad thing about this as well is this could be one of the last playoff runs for this team because there's a chance we lose Kohlers, we lose Bell, we lose Ristolainen, we lose Cashman, all to retirement this offseason potentially. So if we lose a bunch of guys to retirement, this team might miss the playoffs in the last season, which is unfortunate. But yeah, the Sharks' top guys went to work again. Keeler had 3 points again, Rodin 3 points, Bochinski had 2. So we definitely need to find a way to contain those top guys a little bit better. Sawchuk has also been a beast to start off this round. I feel like the Sharks are definitely a favorite to win the Stanley Cup in this, to be honest. I definitely feel like they are. Now, if we can find a way to win both games on home ice, we'll be back to square one again, which is good. But we definitely need to make some adjustments. A lot of people with bad plus-minus in that game, so we are definitely going to probably give the young goaltender an opportunity to be the starter. I'm still not pinning it fully on Giunta some of these games. Like the first game, not so much. Second game, definitely, I would say maybe more so, but it could be also the defensive coverage. Was Hunwick injured the first 2 games? I don't remember. I don't think he was, right? Was Hunwick injured for the first 2 games? Because maybe that would make a difference. The answer is no, he was not. I guess it was just an in-game because I thought he was injured for some reason now. But let's go and make some adjustments, see if we could find a way to win both of our home games, because obviously if we lose any of them, we're going to be in a very tough spot. So, but let's see, what can we do here? Let's go McLeod top line, and McLeod top line doesn't seem to work well, unless maybe I move somebody like Cashman to the top line like he was a few years ago. No, that doesn't seem to work either. What about Cogliano top line? No, that doesn't work either. We can't really put McLeod on that top line, unfortunately, so what could I do? What about Cashman top line for Kopitz? Okay, that kind of works a bit. What about this? Kopitz second line, Cogliano third line. Kohlers apparently doesn't work with Cashman and Cashman and Dunham, which is weird. Aside from that, there's not much else I could do. Ristolainen's not done anything so far, but he's not getting a lot of ice time. I kind of want to get him more ice time, but I don't think there's any way possible for me to do that. Unless I want something like this. Now, who plays face-offs down here? Might be Reefers. Yeah, Reefers is going to take the face-offs now. We're going to try something moving Risto back up with Kohlers. I know it's kind of weird, but... And from a defensive standpoint, we'll move Hutton up. Petterman will go down. And Tulipov is dropping off as well. Tulipov also could be a retirement casualty this offseason, so... And then, yeah, Gianta's not going to be starting the next game. It's not on him. The first game, second game is definitely more on him. But we will give Bachman his first career playoff start and see if that could help anything out a bit. Aside from that, I don't think there's really much else I could do. Unless I take other people out of the lineup and start calling up guys from the minors and all that. But I don't think I want to do that yet. Like, I think Vasilyev would be a great player to have in our lineup right now, but I don't think there's a way I could slot him in without scratching somebody that shouldn't be. So let's see if we can bounce back and win both games on home ice. If we win this next game, we'll keep the team the same. If we lose this game, I might have to go back to making some adjustments again. But the first career playoff start for Bachman, we'll see if he's able to get us a win. If he gets us a win, maybe he's going to be our goaltender going forward in this playoff run. But Gianta's had a tough time a little bit. So we'll see if we could get a good response from our team here and play better defensively as well in front of our goaltender too. Because we can't be expecting our goaltender to make saves all the time. And we can't just be like running around in our own zone if that happens. So let's see what happens. Game number 3 as we shift to home ice. Can we get ourselves back into this playoff round at all? First period. Scoreless. That's much better than being down 4-1. That's much, much better. So shots are even 10-10. It's a 0-0 game. So far, it is playing a little bit better for us because obviously we're more of a defensive team. But we also do need goal scoring support because we know that they have goal scorers and they could really score out of nowhere. So we do need to find ways to score a couple goals, maybe in the second period to give us a chance. So can we find a way to get ourselves that lead? Second period. 3-3. Okay, that's a much more offensive period. At least it's good for us that we scored some goals, but don't really like that we gave up 3 goals in a period again. So Morrison opens the scoring for them early on. Literally 46 seconds later, Wall ties it up. Literally a minute later, well, actually 57 seconds later, Keeler gives them back the lead. Then Doughty scores 2 minutes or so later, basically ties it up again. Then Neil McNeil gives the Sharks the lead on the power play, and then Hunwick ties it up like 5 minutes later. So both teams didn't have leads for long, but now it's a 3-3 game going into the third period. Shots are 24-23 in favor of us. At least we've been able to find ways to score on Sawchuk again like we did in game 1, but we do need to play better defensively because, like I said, so far, our defensive play hasn't been good so far. At least Bachman seems to be doing better than Gianta did last game, but not by much, I would say. Can we find a way to get our first lead of the night, I guess? Yeah, we haven't had the lead yet because it's been back and forth. So can we get our first lead of the night and hopefully hold them off the rest of the way? Let's see what happens. Third period. Come on, boys. Let's get that fourth one. Let's get that fourth one. And just play some good defensive hockey as well. Because obviously last period was a little bit offensive. Power play for us. It's a long power play. And they get a short-handed goal. And of course it has to be Neil McNeil of all people. And then Morrison makes it 5-3. Well, I feel like we're going to get swept here, it looks like. Which is not ideal. And the Sharks are going to take our home game with a score of 5-3. We did not have the lead whatsoever in that game. That's a tough one, man. Losing on a short-handed goal and then they score a couple minutes later. Well, we're either getting swept here in this first round or we are going to pull off a reverse sweep because we are a cheese team. But this is not exactly what I had in mind with this playoff run. But I honestly didn't expect us to go super far either. So maybe we just made the playoffs just to make the playoffs. But damn, this sucks just because of the impending retirements and all that. So Wall from Reefers, Doughty from Reefers and Hutton, and Hunwick from Robertson and McLeod. But then shorthanded goal from Neil McNeil ends up being the difference, basically. Oh, boy. Any badly minus people in that game? McLeod and Bell. Ugh. And the goaltending numbers, yeah, Bachman really wasn't that good either. 3 stars, all their top guys again, right? Yeah. I could call up somebody from the AHL as a goaltender, but I don't know if Andronov would be much better, to be honest, at this stage. Like, it's probably best just to wait till next season to get him in as, like, a third-string goaltender. Trying to think of what we could do, though, to make this team better. Like, do I just go best lines and see what ends up happening? But then I would move McLeod back to defense, that's the thing. Yeah, I don't really know if I want that. Oh, Doughty just dropped off because of morale, probably. Yeah, god damn it, man. Why do these guys complain about ice time so much? Doughty's a 2-way. Trying to think of what I want to do here. Let's go back to Risto on that fourth line again, even though this is probably his last career NHL game. Or maybe I try him back on the top line. You know what? We're going to go back to Risto with Dunham and Kolar's on that top line. The original kind of top line after we lost Staubitz. And then Cashman has been pretty good so far. I am maybe not the craziest, but we'll move Cogliano to fourth line center. Cashman's going to go to second line center. Kopitz will be third line because Kopitz hasn't done anything here so far. So we'll go something like that. And then from a defensive standpoint, let's swap Nold and Bell, I guess. I honestly don't even know at this point. Both goalies have been really bad, 860 save percentages, so we'll go back to Gionta just because Gionta's the old guy on the team, but one last time maybe for Kolarz and Ristolainen together on a top line. We'll see if that ends up sparking us. It might not. Like I said, I could call up guys from the AHL, but at this point, I think I'm going to wait till next season, just because this team is probably not going to go far regardless. Next season, we could have Vasiliev, Hartman, and McKinnon all in our lineup. Like, at least we're going to have a little bit of injection into our lineup from the AHL next season, but losing Kolarz, Ristolainen, guys like that probably to retirement, it's going to be a bit of a tough pill to swallow for this team. So, it is what it is, though. All right. Well, here comes a huge game in this team's history. Can we find a way to maybe reverse sweep the Sharks and stay alive? I honestly don't know if that would happen or not, but it could happen because the game likes to throw random curveballs like that. But at the same time, this might be the last NHL game for some Albuquerque legends, so we might have to jump in if we're going to even get swept or something like that. I'm not even too sure because I have screenshots of Risto already. I have a screenshot of Kolarz. Maybe I don't need to jump in then. Yeah, I don't think I will probably jump in if we're going to get eliminated. I don't know. We might have to jump in, obviously, next season, though, because next season's our last season, probably, so. Let's do a real-time simulation and see if we could start clawing back in the series at any point. They open the scoring early, which is not a great sign to see that they score first again. But do we have a response? Come on, boys. Oh, my goodness, Foot. Yeah, I feel like this series is going to be a sweep here, which is not good. Maybe if we keep saying the word sweep, we will reverse psychology the game. I'm not too sure, but this is not good. This is unfortunate, man. Thought we would literally have a chance to win at least some games in this round, but then like the Sharks are a really good team, so I can understand why they're probably going to sweep us, but I thought maybe identifying as a cheese team would help a little bit better, but So shots are 11-9. We're down by a pair of goals. Can we get back into this game in a second? Let's see what happens. If we could get that next one, we could definitely still be in this, and of course they get one. They make it 3-0 as Quincy scores. We do get the next one after that, though. Cashman makes it a 3-1 game. Penalty kill. This is a big penalty kill, boys. We killed off. Can we pull within one here? If we could pull within one, we still have a chance. So, but, of course, they get another one. It's 4-1. Yep. We're just not playing good enough defensively like we were during the regular season. It's going to be 5-1 going into the third period. So, we've allowed 4 or more goals in every single game of the series. I definitely think the Sharks are going to win the Stanley Cup this year if they beat us, though. They outplayed us completely again so far at this point. Shots are 29-16, and we are appeared away from going out in the first round, which is unfortunate, but we kind of expected it, maybe in a way. But at the same time, maybe we expected a little bit better from our team and actually winning at least one game, but this sucks, man. This sucks. I thought we'd at least win one game. But next year is not going to be really much of a chance. Probably Wang makes it 6-1. Yeah, I'm not even going to jump into this game at all to watch the handshake because we just got completely dominated, and that is what it is. But that means Ristolainen's last NHL game is going to be a really tough one for this team. So there it is. Unfortunately, we are going to be getting swept in round one. We just could not continue that great defensive play from the regular season into the playoffs, and our offense was still kind of mediocre, basically, like it was during the season. So final shots 39-30 in favor of the Sharks, and we end up losing 6-1 and also losing in a sweep. Their top line was too good against us. Our last goal of this round, Cashman from Hutton and Robertson. God damn, man. That sucks a lot. Probably some really bad plus minuses too, right? Yeah. A couple plus guys, Hutton and Hunwick at least, but Gionta had a really tough time, and I'm not sure if I would still put a lot of these games fully on him. It could be just our defensive play really just fell off a cliff, but Damn. Sawchuk was also a difference in the series, too, because we just could not score goals on him. We didn't generate a lot of chances on him either. Wang, the second star. Bertuzzi, the third star. Damn. Well, that's the last NHL game for Ristolainen, probably, for sure. I think Kolar's as well and all that. But let's take a look at some player stats, even though it's going to be pretty dreadful because there's not going to be barely any goals and a lot of bad plus-minuses on this roster. But I'll also show you guys the Sharks stats so you guys can see who destroyed us. But if we look at forwards, you can see Reefers led us in points, which when Reefers leads us in points in the playoffs in that round, that's not a good idea because that's a fourth-line guy, basically, slash third-liner. Cashman had 3 points. Robertson had 3 points. Everybody else had only 1 point. So just not enough scoring from anybody on this roster. And then if you look at the plus-minus results, yeah, some really bad plus-minuses. Kolar's was dreadful. This might be, like I said, his last year, though. And then also Ristolainen was -2. Didn't put up any points. So that's unfortunate. Like, our age is definitely showing on this team. And then from a defensive standpoint, McLeod was point per game, which is nice, but -3. Nold was pretty good. There are some actually good players in that round, I would say. Like, Nold was definitely solid defensively, also helped out with the offensive totals. But yeah, Petterman and Bell, that pairing was absolutely dreadful. Both those guys are -8 in the playoffs, so definitely needed more from them. And then from a goaltending perspective, yeah, both goalies did not show up. Bachman played his first career playoff game, was absolutely lit up. Gionta played 3 games. I think his first game was okay. Like I said, he kept us in some of those kind of games, but the second game he was bad. The third game he played, he was not very good either. But the team just in front of him wasn't working well either. So unfortunate that he had to post those type of numbers after having such a good regular season or solid regular season. But he is 35 years old, so he might be on the decline at this point. Damn, that sucks. Well, that's definitely not a good playoff round for us. So let's take a look at the Sharks stats, because I'm pretty sure a lot of these guys had over point per game, right? Yeah, like Keeler, Rodin, Bochinski, that top line, like I said, killed us. Wang was really good against us. Like, they got some pretty good depth scoring. Like, even Neil McNeil was over point per game against us. Had that big short-handed goal to give them a 3-0 series lead as well. So, almost every single one of their forward had a point. Their defensive core, every single one of them had a point. Really good plus-minus from Goddard, too, +10, goddamn. And a goaltending, Sawchuk posted a 939. If we didn't run into the Sharks, maybe we would have had a chance, but San Jose is definitely a team that's probably going to win a Stanley Cup because they missed the playoffs last year, my guess. Because a lot of the time when you see a team basically have a good playoff run, then they miss the playoffs the year afterwards for no reason, then they make it back again, I feel like all of a sudden they become a favorite to win the Cup. So I definitely see them winning the Stanley Cup or at least going to the finals this year. So with that said, let's find out who ends up winning the Stanley Cup and all the awards and all that. Obviously, see the retirements wrap up the 2048 season, but we only have 1 season left of this, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously, at the end of that season, we will basically be looking at the record book and all that type of thing. Looks like the AHL team's still in the playoffs, which is good to see. At least maybe some of our top prospects will get the chance to win a Calder Cup, but it looks like they might have just got eliminated here because no notifications about going to the next round. That's unfortunate. So, yeah, they did get eliminated. That sucks. I was hoping they'd have a chance because they have an 84 overall goalie. And the San Jose Sharks do win the Stanley Cup, so I did predict it right. So we do at least lose to the best team in the entire NHL, which makes me feel a little bit better. But I kind of had it predicted once they won that series that they were going to win the Stanley Cup. So, weird. Texas also wins the AHL. So, San Jose, the Stanley Cup champions, which means that top line of the Sharks gets it done this year. Not really a surprise. That's a good roster. Who did they beat in the finals out of curiosity? They beat the Philadelphia Flyers. Interesting. San Jose, Philadelphia. So after San Jose swept us, they beat Vegas in 6. Then they swept Nashville and took out Philly in 5. So, yeah, they went through a lot of teams quite easily, which makes a lot of sense with what they did a few years ago. So, shout out to the Sharks. Let's take a look at their player stats actually on that cup-winning team too, just because we know that they beat us. But I'm assuming Bochinski probably led the way or something like that. Oh, it was Keeler. 33 points for Keeler. Bochinski had 32. Rodin had 30. Yeah, see, no other team was able to contain that line either. So we weren't the only ones at least. And Neil McNeil, after having over point per game in the first round against us, didn't do anything else afterwards, really. Like, he had 5 points in the next 3 rounds, but there's all the Sharks stats. Damn, plus 21 for their top defenseman, too. That's crazy. Goaltending, Sawchuk posted a 938. Hutton did get into a game as well, and he was really good in it. So, yeah, San Jose is just really good in both areas of the puck, apparently. All right, in terms of awards, let's see these awards. San Jose wins the Stanley Cup. Nashville won the President's Trophy. San Jose going to the Cup Finals against Philadelphia. Did Philadelphia win a cup recently or no? No, they did not. I feel like Philly won a cup recently in one of my franchise modes, but I don't remember which one. And then in terms of the actually not the AHL, we'll go to AHL for a second to see the Calder Cup winner. So Texas won for the second time in the last 5 years. All right. Individual awards for the NHL. Cunning wins his second straight Art Ross Trophy and his second straight Hart. Malachi Roberts does win the Norris as I expected. 2 in the last 3 years for him. Dunham won the Lady Byng. I was not expecting that. Okay, that's interesting. Lady Byng to Eugene Dunham. So shout out to Dunham for winning an award. I was not expecting that whatsoever. So good stuff from Dunham. All right. Lindsay wins the Calder for Detroit. Keeler wins the Conn Smythe, not a surprise. Foy won the Vezina this season. Not really a surprise either. Same with the Jennings. Eastwood wins the Masterton. Boulis for Montreal wins the Jack Adams. Okay. Lindsay wins the Selke for Winnipeg. Semin wins the Lindsay. Or actually, wait. Lindsay wins the Selke, and I said, and then Semin won the Lindsay. That was confusing as shit. I was like, wait a second. Semin also won the Richard this year. All right. Any AHL awards for players down in Burnaby? The answer is no. That's kind of surprising. All right. So only one award for us, and was one that I was not expecting for Eugene Dunham. So at least he has some hardware now in his trophy cabinet because he has nothing so far other than the Stanley Cup win, I think. So good to see on that. All right. So now comes the big question about the draft lottery. First and foremost, obviously draft lottery doesn't matter, but the big question we have is the retirements. Are we going to have multiple casualties this year? We're probably going to do a slow reveal, which means starting with the goaltenders and all that, but New York Islanders are going to win the draft lottery, followed by Colorado, Chicago, Anaheim, and Carolina. All right. And we should see the pop-up here shortly, which means I'm going to have to, we're going to hide this for a second here. And I'm going to change this over to goalies, so I do not see if Risto retired yet. Boom. Good. And let's see these retirements. So start off with the goaltenders, any former goalie or current goalie. I do remember Lupul from somewhere. Probably was Anaheim. Is there any goalies I recognize or that used to play with our organization? No, not so much. What about defense? This is the first one we could actually have a retirement in. Is Drew Bell on defense retired? The answer is yes, he is. Okay, damn. So Landon DuPont retired, which is a big retirement, but Drew Bell has hung them up, which is something I was kind of expecting him to. The former 3rd overall pick back in 2029 retires at the end of the second last season. Damn. He was still an 82 overall, so to me, he could have probably still played a little bit longer. But here is the career numbers for Drew Bell. 1,553 games with 535 points, over 120 goals as well. Drew Bell was pretty good, especially on the defensive side of things. You could see plus 458. So, and in his playoff career, 69 points in 201 games, plus 12. He was really bad, though, in that last playoff run, so you could kind of tell that the legs fell off of him a bit. So, shout out to Drew Bell. Like I said, drafted way back, 3rd overall in 2029. The crazy thing is he's a DFD, but he had 535 career points, so pretty decent for him right there. I'll start maybe keeping track of some of these player stats if I can, but I don't know if I can. It does suck that he's retired, but that's one of our alternate captains, I think, on the team, so shout out to him. At least a lot of cap hit comes off because of that retirement, so that's good to see. But shout out to Bell. Aside from that, any other former or current defenders retire? Let's see. Kirill Novoseltsev isn't ours. Don't see anybody else here really on defense so far. Unless there's like a really obscure name on the bottom of this list. Which there could be. Janicki, there's one, I think. Yep, Janicki. Forgot all about Janicki. He played one game, had one goal. I didn't even realize he only played the one game with us, but... Oh, no, it wasn't with us. It was with Ottawa. So we played him a long time in the AHL, and then we got rid of him. He ended up leaving and playing in Ottawa for one game and scoring his only goal. So shout out to him. But yeah, former 5th round pick of ours. Not really much of anything, but still kind of cool. And then in terms of right wingers, I don't think we'd have anybody here. I think it would be left wingers and centers we're worried about. So I don't think there's anybody here. Caden Slater retires. I remember that dude from Colorado. Yeah, some familiar names for sure that we went up against in playoff scenarios, but nobody that used to play with us, I don't think. Unless there's somebody down here. Nope. All right, so left wingers. Did Kolarz retire? Did Kolarz retire to join Drew Bell? The answer is no, he did not. But Cade Del Monte did, though. So we brought back Cade Del Monte for one last run with the team. He didn't get to play at all in the playoffs, but he ends up retiring just under 1,000 career points. So maybe I should have played him a little bit more in that last season of his. He got to play 3 more games with us and retire as an Albuquerque Alien. But decent player for some of his career, but we had to let him go back in the day just because he was going to demand too much money. And yeah, solid player. I think he did win a Stanley Cup after leaving us still, right? No, he didn't. Never mind. So shout out to Cade Del Monte, former 3rd overall pick back in 2028, so the year before we got Drew Bell. So there is all of that. He's the best left winger to retire. And speaking of other left wingers, I think I saw, yeah, there's other guys that used to play with us, including Mark Dagg, the former enforcer. Was it a grinder? Yeah, grinder. Did he win a Stanley Cup with us? Yeah, he did. He was part of our cup winning team. Former 6th round pick that was drafted 167th overall. Final career numbers, 244 points in 941 games. Definitely more of a physical player. And in the playoffs, 11 points in 71 games. So, and he was a part of that cup winning team back in 2038. So shout out to Mark Dagg. Solid steal. Anybody else that used to play with us on the left wing side of things? Does not look like it. So Kolarz didn't retire. That's kind of a surprising one. But I was expecting, obviously, also retirement to Del Monte. Now, we didn't lose Tulipov on defense. That's a defender that we did not lose. So there will be some guys that could still return for next season, which is good. But other guys retired. Now, the big one is, did Ristolainen retire? Also, did Cashman retire too? If Risto retires this season, it's going to suck a lot, but it makes a lot of sense considering he's like 40 years old at this point. So, did Risto retire? The answer is yes, he did. And here is the biggest retirement we've had since Staubitz. Kari Ristolainen retires at 41 years of age. 1,878 games, or not games played, points in 1,859 games played, 859 goals, 1,019 assists. Former 1st overall pick back in 2025, so a long career for Ristolainen. And at least he got a Stanley Cup and a bunch of Selkies in his career. Definitely dropped off these last few years, but man, what a player he was. Over 1,000 penalty minutes as well for him. He did fight people occasionally. A lot of shorthanded points too. 33 shorthanded goals, 52 shorthanded points. So he was very good on the PK. Won a lot of faceoffs over his career too. Threw a lot of hits, had some good takeaways. He was one of the better power forwards that I've had, I think, in a franchise mode. And in terms of playoffs, 178 points in 201 games, 78 goals, 100 assists. He helped out a lot during the postseason at times. Preseason stats, he was over a point per game. Yeah, he was really good. And then, of course, his award cabinet and stuff like that was really awesome, too. Because if we go down to here, the Stanley Cup win in 2038. He also won the Hart in 2038-39. He won a Lindsay also the same season. Same with the Art Ross. And then he won 6 Selke trophies, with the last one being back in 2039-40. So it's been a while since he won a Selke, but he was definitely known for his solid play all around. So shout out to Risto, who joined Staubitz in the retirement group. Him and Staubitz are probably first ballot Channel Hall of Famers likely, in my opinion. So pretty big retirement there. Did anybody else retire? Oh, Hector Cashman did retire. I didn't even realize that. So Cashman retires at 35. That might be one of the earlier retirements we've had. Was not expecting him fully to go yet, but he was dropping off a cliff. So we lose 2 centermen this year as well. So Cashman's a pretty big one as well. Like, he dropped down to a 74 apparently after that season. Goddamn. But very good steal for us in the 5th round back in 2032. And he had actually a couple more years left on his contract, but decided to retire already. He was also part of the cup-winning team. Final career numbers, 739 points in 1,056 games. He definitely had some strong games, and very physical at times too, over 100 penalty minutes one season. In terms of his playoff numbers, 123 points in 174 games. Also was useful shorthanded too. 19 shorthanded goals, 39 shorthanded points. So it was like him and Risto that really did a lot of good shorthanded work the last little while. Not as good on the faceoff down as Risto, but still a solid player was Cashman. Surprised that he would retire at 35 because most guys retire at 36 in this, but salute to Cashman, who was the 5th best centerman to retire in this crop. Anybody else that used to play with us or currently does? But a lot of retirements this year for this team. So nobody else. Okay, so if we go into just our team, we lost a lot of guys this year. A lot of guys. So shout out to these 4 guys, especially Risto, Cashman, and Bell, since they've been here for a while. But also shout out to Del Monte, who returned to join the organization for a little bit. Decided to call it quits, but that's quite the retirement group. Maybe one of the stronger retirement groups we've had. We do still have some older guys on this team that could still retire probably in the last season, but pretty much a lot of the main core guys are gone. Kolarz is the only one that's not going to retire probably before the series ends, I guess, because I don't know if we'll be able to see the retirements next season or not, but there is that. So salute to those dudes. And let's see, we also lost a coach, which probably is a goalie coach, so that doesn't matter too much. And nobody became a scout, which kind of sucks. It is what it is, though. Final few things we got to take a look at is the draft class, the progress reports, and the contract situation. At least we're going to have a lot more of our money to respend on our top young guys and all that. But it does suck to lose a lot of guys to retirement this season. So let's start by looking at, I guess, the progress reports. See what we got in terms of player growth and drop off. Because obviously we're an older team, so there's going to be guys dropping off. But Gianta's in 87 now. Is he dropping off a little bit? He is. I expected that. And Dronov's in 84, so that's looking nice. Bachman's in 83. He's going to be up here again. Bergfors is still 78. Shodin is 76. And Owens is 72. We do have a log jam of goaltenders, but we are going to have to run 3 goalies in the NHL next season because I believe Andronov's waiver status, he would actually go through waivers now, so likely we are going to run 3 goalies in the NHL next year, which means in the AHL, it's probably going to be Bergfors and Owens because I might have to let go of Shodin if he's up for renewal. From a defensive standpoint, any good growth? Ooh, that's not great. Some drop off a little bit, looks like. Yeah, from Hunwick. Maybe some statistical natural growth too, which is good. McLeod might be statistical mostly. Yeah, mostly statistical. There's definitely going to be some guys dropping off here. Like Tulipov's down to a 77. I don't think I signed him long-term, which is good. But, yeah, I don't know if Tulipov will come back or if he'll just be a depth defenseman for us because he's probably not going to be good enough to be a starting defenseman for our team anymore. From a right-wing perspective, Dunham's still good. Most of these guys are still young enough. What about AHL, actually? Pelusa is still, Some of these low elites are growing, but I feel like they're just not going to make it, unfortunately, on time. Kolarz is still an 81, but he is getting a lot of statistical growth, which means he's probably actually like a 78. So, yeah, Kolarz probably could be a 4th-line guy next season, which is not ideal, but at least there's going to be a big player jumping to our lineup in Vasiliev, and I'm very excited for him. 36 goals in his 2nd season in the AHL, and he had 12 points in the playoffs, so hopefully this guy could maybe give us a little bit of a boost next season. Also, Hartman probably could play in our NHL lineup next season or be a depth forward for our team. So, at least there's some players coming up, which is good. Moroza is also very close. Damn, Moroza also could potentially play in the last season, maybe. He's definitely going to play in the AHL for sure next year. But we are getting some good growth from some of those low elites. And in terms of our centers, obviously our center core took a little bit of a hit losing Ristolainen and Cashman, but that means Hansen could easily come back up to the NHL next year, and Krejcik might get a full-time roster spot, which is kind of good. So McKinnon actually should be playing maybe 2 at some point. So we at least have replacements for those guys that we lost to retirement, but it's going to be an interesting looking team for sure going into our last season. So there is that. Final things we need to take a look at. Let's take a look at the contract situation and the draft class. So first and foremost, the contract situation. We should have more money to spend since we lost guys to retirement. But we do have some pretty big UFAs, including DeAndre Hunwick, who's probably going to demand a ton of money. Yeah, he thinks he's worth $14.7 million. I'd love to hold on to this guy if we can. So hopefully we can get this money a little bit. Like hopefully we can get him down to like 12 million or something like that and not have to worry the rest of the way. But yeah, he's going to cost us a lot of money. So, but he is kind of worth it in the sense, like he's been one of our best defensemen the last few years. Dingle's an RFA, so at least that's not bad. Kolars is a UFA. Again, obviously I need to hold on to Kolars. He still wants a 2-year deal, which is kind of surprising. 3.25 million right now. I'm not too sure if he's going to get that type of money. But yeah, we definitely want to hold on to him for the last season, I think. Aside from that, Hansen's a UFA, Doughty's a UFA, Hartman's RFA. A lot of UFAs, but I think we should be able to afford most of these guys just because we lost some big players to retirement, so that will help things a little bit. But there's all that. And then the goalie situation, Bergforce. Is he going to want a one-way deal? No, he wants still two-way. That's at least good. And then Owens should be playing in the AHL if we do have the roster space for goalies. We might not have the roster space for him, so that might not be great, but it is what it is. All right, so there's all that. Also, unsigned players, we could definitely give Moroza his ELC and Conan his ELC if we want to as well, so that way we get at least some guys into the AHL. Also, this low 6 is up to a 70 at 20, which is not bad, so there's some prospects that are going to get a chance in the last season, at least at the AHL level. So, shout out to those guys. All right, final things, the draft class. Is this a good draft class for us? We obviously don't really care too much about it. But can we find anything decent in the later stages of this first round for next episode? Actually, where are we drafting? Because I don't know what spot we're at. Is it going to be a late pick in the first round? 23rd. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. I really don't expect us to get much, and I don't really care too much about the draft class. But obviously, it would be good to just set up this team for future success regardless. So, around 23rd, there is DeMello. Looks like basic top 6 forward. There is Ramsey, probably basic top 6/top 9. Jocelyn's a guaranteed top 9. Svitov might be an elite player, but tough to say. Probably a top 6 in my opinion. Doesn't really look like a super strong draft class. Ooh, this guy looks good though. Marco Tulola. He's 1 year out. He's a right winger. We do need right wing prospects, so we'll definitely pin him. There's also Marcos Cairns, who's not very good. Might be a low elite though still because it says 4 years out. And there is a goalie supposed to go early second round, so maybe there's a chance this guy's got a good overall, but it says maybe 5 years out, so probably not. Is there any guaranteed elite players that I could pin? Let's see. No guaranteed medium elites. Any good low elites to steal? Yes, there is, but this guy's supposed to go right before our pick potentially. Oh man, this guy would be nice too. He's NHL ready. Left wing, right wing. So if that guy doesn't go 21st and he ends up somehow going in our position, which it says he could potentially, that would be fantastic. I don't think he will, but that would be an absolutely great player to get for our last season. Considering he's NHL ready and he's supposed to go that late. Like, I wish I could kind of move up and grab this guy, but I can't because it's a draft of glory. So, but Letovori looks good. Weiss is an low lead offensive defenseman. Definitely would be somebody I would still take just for the potential. Novoseltsev looks okay as well. So there might be some okay steals in the draft, but nobody that we're going to get to see play with this organization, unfortunately. Unless I decided to recreate everybody that was a prospect again and restart a franchise mode, but I don't think I'm going to do that because that just takes too much time. So there's all that. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Albuquerque Aliens Draft to Glory franchise mode. So in next episode, we'll have, I think, the final off-season of this franchise mode. So draft, re-sign stage, maybe bring back some former players in free agency and all that. But it will be the final off-season, I'm pretty sure. Which means the episode after that would be the final season simulation. Hopefully we can still make the playoffs in the final season. If we don't, obviously, then we'll get to the recap and all that stuff near the end of it faster. Because obviously we'll look at like the record book and all that in a few episodes. Take a look at who was like our all-time leader in games played, points, all that stuff. Should be interesting, I think. And then we'll look at everybody on our roster still too and see what their career numbers are like too that didn't retire. But this has been a fun franchise mode so far. It does suck that we've only got the one Stanley Cup. I don't think we're going to win another, to be honest. But at least we've had some good runs. And at least we've had some really fun players in the series as well. So looking forward to what you guys think about this series so far down below. And I hope that you guys are also excited for the next series, which is going to be that Edmonton Oilers probably throwback franchise mode. So let me know down below, and I'll see you guys next time.